Okay, so now this next one, factoring. So again, if you remember in the 2 units ago in Unit 3, we had to do some factoring. And if you open up your notes and go to this page here, where you have factoring here, was this about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different types of factoring. And then here on the left you have factoring by grouping. And then a page after that you've got sums and differences of cubes. This will help us get through these next problems here. Okay? So if you look at the problem that's on the upper left there, you'll notice we have 4 terms. Well, if you remember that when you have 4 terms, like it says here on the left, when you have 4 terms, that's a good sign that we're going to do this technique, factoring by grouping. Remember, we split it down the middle, and then we find the common factor on each side, and then combine them. Well, that's what we're going to do with this first one. And then, as we go through the next one, you'll see sums and differences of cubes, and you can recognize that by, let's see if I can point to the right direction. Wait, no, not this way, but this way. This one up there, see that? That problem right there, x cubed plus 125, those are both perfect cubes. So we're going to use this method to factor that one out, okay? All right, so let me turn that video up. So we're going to use this the first one we're going to do factoring by grouping, and we do that by splitting it down the middle. And you have to find common factors on each side. So, greatest common factor here on the left, let's see, I can take a 2 out of both. I can also take an x squared out of both. And so what I'm left with would be x here, because x times 2x squared is 2x to the cubed. And then over here, I'd have 2, and that's it, just 2, because 2 times 2x squared is 4x squared. And let's go to the right. Now remember, I want to end up with matching pairs. So if you look at your notes, it should say that you want to end up with matching pairs there. And so I should end up with x plus 2 on the other side. So that's our goal here. So let's see, in common here, they both have 18, but I also know that I want this middle sign to be positive, so I'm going to take out a negative as well. And there's not much else I can take out. So here I would have x, because x times negative 18 is negative 18x, and then plus 2, because 2 times negative 18 is negative 36. And now we have 2 matching pairs. So if you remember, what you do is you take your factors and that out, and that becomes your first factor, or polynomial here, 2x squared minus 18, and then you multiply that times one of the matching pairs, x plus 2. And there it is factored out. Now with this next one, if you remember, now we have to use the formula. Go to your sums and differences of cubes notes on the next page, and we have to use this formula. A plus or minus b equals a squared something times, or something plus or minus a times b plus or minus b squared. Now if that sign in the middle, if it's positive like it is here, then that means that the first sign will also be positive. They're the same. And if this was negative over here on the left, then this would be negative over right here. And then the first term in the next one, and I apologize, this actually should not be there, because these should be multiplied, not added, or equal to. Sorry about that. And then this sign here will be negative, and then the last sign is always positive. So the really ones you got to remember is, what is this one, and what will this one be? This one, the first one will always be positive, the second one will always be, the first one will always be the same, and the second one will always be the opposite. Now what we need to do is find those bases, the base A and base B. So you say to yourself, what do I have to multiply 3 times to make it equal x cubed? X. And then what do I multiply 3 times to equal 125? Well, 5. And now you just plug in those numbers. So now a plus b is x plus 5. Then a squared would be x squared minus a times b, which is 5x, plus b squared, which is 25. And there's your answer. And that's it. And that's completely factored out. You can't factor out this last one when you use that technique. Okay, next one. Last one. Write the simplest polynomial function with the given zeros. So this is writing polynomials with zeros. This is the last notes that we took last Friday. Okay. Now, what you do here is however many roots there are, that's going to be how many binomials you write. So I have 3, so I'll write 3. And we always put an x in front. And remember, x is a liar, so we want to be able to plug in the 2 here, the negative 3 here, and the 4 here, and it should equal 0 when we do. So this would have to be negative 2, because 2 minus 2 is 0. This would have to be positive 3, because negative 3 plus 3 is 0. And this would have to be minus 4, because 4 minus 4 is 0. Now, we're going to multiply all this out. First thing you would do is FOIL the right side. But first, before we do that, let's bring down the one we're not going to FOIL so we don't forget it. Okay, now let's FOIL x squared. And then negative 4 plus 3 is negative x. And then 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. And then the last thing we need to do is the box. And if you're following in your notes, you'll see that in your notes how it says the box. Use the box. So this is going to be a 2 by 3. I put x and negative 2 here, x squared on top, x here, negative x here, and negative 12. So this first one will be x cubed, then negative 2x squared, then negative x squared here, positive, because of negative and negative, 2x, positive 2x, and then negative 12x. And then the last one will be positive 24. And now you take all those terms you just found and add them up. And if you'll notice, all the diagonals here happen to be matching terms, or like terms, I should say. So we can combine those. So we start with x cubed, and then negative 2x squared minus x squared is negative 3x squared. And then 2x minus 12x would be negative 10x. And then our last term, 24 plus 24. And there is our function, our polynomial function. Okay, now we do the same thing. This will be a little bit different because we've got some fractions involved. Okay, so we'll have x minus 1/2. And we got a negatives over here, so we'll have x plus 2 and x plus 4. Then do the same thing. Well, let's FOIL the right. But before we do that, bring down the left binomial just so we don't forget it. X squared, 2 plus 4, 6, so that would be 6x. And then we'll have 2 times 4, which would be 8. Now, let's set up our box. X here, negative 1/2 here, x squared, 6x, and 8. The first box here will be x cubed. Then to the right will be 6x squared. Then we'll have 8x. Now we have some fractions. So this first one will be negative 1/2 x squared. Then this one will be half of 6 is 3, so that will be negative. And we have a negative, so that will be negative 3x. And then the last one, half of 8 is, let me zoom this up a little bit, is 4, but we have a negative, so it'll be negative 4. Now, just a quick review. let's say that's 1/3, you know, sometimes it doesn't go in so evenly. So I could bring it off to the side, and let's say we're doing the this one here. You could say negative 1/2 times 6 x. And remember, if you have a whole number times a fraction, you make that whole number a fraction, and you multiply across. So negative 1 times 6x is negative 6x, and then 2 times 1 is 2, and then it's 6 over 2, so which is equal to negative 3. Okay? Now, we have to combine like terms here. Now, the first one would be easy, just x cubed. Second one, not as easy, so we have a negative 1/2 x squared plus a 6, oops, let me make it a little smaller, 6x squared. Well, again, we turn that into a fraction and be able to add them in order to add or subtract them. And this denominator over here on the right has to have 2, so I have to multiply top and bottom by 2. So now we'll have negative 1/2 x squared plus 12 over 2x squared. Now we can add that. So now we add our numerators. Negative 1 plus 12 will be positive 11 over 2x squared. So there's our second term, 11 over 2x squared. And then simply negative 3x squared, 3x plus 8 will be positive 5x. And then the last term was negative 4, so we'll have minus 4. Okay, that's it. Have any more questions, come and see me. I'll have a review session on Tuesday.